welcome here to this special Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora from inside of the Heritage Hill Studios. Heritage Hill on 3149 Sweet Road in Pompey, New York, out in the country, God's country. And of course, you'll also find them at 628 South Main Street in their newest location at Heritage Hill North in North Syracuse, New York, just by the airport there in our community at Sweetheart Corner. We're here for the UAB Blazers, University of Alabama, Birmingham Blazers head football coach Trent Dilfer joining us going into the 2024-25 season. As you know, we have covered here on Wake Up Call the American Athletic Conference before there was a logo and a name to the conference. And so in our coverage of the AAC, we've also spent time with UAB over these past few years, since back in 2021 when the information came that they were going to be joining the conference. So with that being said, I welcome back to the show Trent Dilfer. Trent, how are you?
Dan, I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. And, you know, Trent, I think for me, and you and I have talked about this a little bit when we were down in Arlington, Texas, for UAB's first media days in the American Athletic last year, it's surreal to me because I saw you play, collected your cards, watched your Super Bowl when I told you I had a 102-degree temperature. And I just had this conversation a few days ago. I was like, of all the Super Bowls that I've watched in my life, the one that I remember and like truly can go right back to is the one where I had a 102-degree temperature, felt awful, but I had gone into it saying, I believe that Trent Dilfer can do this. I believe that he's better than people give him credit for. And I was willing to die on that mountain, and you proved me right, so thank you. But by going back and looking at that, it's just surreal to remember that Super Bowl, remember your career, collecting your cards, seeing you on TV, analyze games, and then get to sit next to you. So I just want to tell you once again that if you ever wonder if you've made an effect on somebody positively, you definitely did with me.
Well, I appreciate it. It was a long time ago, or as I say, a lot of hair ago for me. But what a great team. It's fun to have those memories brought back. It's to be part of something special like that. And I wasn't, I didn't drive the ship, but I was on the ship and equally important to me. And the relationships that came from that team are still lasting. Saw Ray, I don't know what, 3 weeks ago. And it's like every time we see each other, that group sees each other, it's like we never said goodbye. So wonderful memories and a good part of my life, and used a lot of those lessons learned, or I'm using them as I try to rebuild this program here at UAB.
Yeah, and like you said, lessons learned of going through that and that time that you had there as you try to rebuild this program at UAB. Now that you've had a season under your belt there, what are you seeing as these pieces are coming together? And there's, I don't know, in my head, I kind of picture a bunch of rubble, and then you see it come together and start to form pillars, and this house starts to stand. What are some of those things that are happening that are creating the pillars of this program?
Yeah, it's a good word picture, actually. I think first of all, you have to own what you were in year one. And everybody's going to have their reasons, excuses, and whatnot, but you are what your record says you are, and we were 4-8. So we have to own that. We have to eat it, but we got to learn from it too, And that was one of the messages I had for the players and the staff throughout the season as we went through some tough times was, let's make sure these are learns, not losses for long term. Let's make sure that as we're going on this journey together, those of us that are going to be together for a long time, we got to make sure we handle these temporary setbacks as the same way we'll handle the great victories coming in the future. So, I think you set the foundation, to use your word picture. I think year one is, well, I've always said this, and this was true on any team I was on. This is true with the Elite 11. This is true with businesses I owned. This is true with the high school program I ran. Year one, I try to have everybody picture, Audubon, but going one way, like north-south, and then east-west Audubon at the same time.
Yeah.
That's what you roll into, is you roll into a giant car crash. Everybody's trying to go fast. Everybody's going different directions. That's why you're losing. That's why it hasn't been good. That's why there's a new coach, right? That's why there is a new leader in place, because the powers that be realize that all the cars are going opposite directions. So year one, you're just trying to go north south only. You're really just trying to get everybody driving the same direction, and then you're trying to get them to drive a little bit faster, and that's improvement. And you're trying to get them to drive more efficiently. That's improvement. And then you go into year two, and now you really can start teaching them how to race. And because you're limiting the crashes. And that's what this year has been. We've taken the lessons learned from driving messy in year one and applied them to year two. Now, what does that look like? Every coach that you're going to talk to, or every coach at the Americans is going to say, I really like this team. I like my team. I like how we recruited. I like my staff. I mean, the coach speak, I've been around coach speak for 40, how many years now? I'm 52. I started in football when I was 10 as a ball boy. For 42 years, I've been listening to coach speak. So I know it like the back of my hand. And we all have it. I try to be a little more honest and transparent than that. But I like the direction we're going. I like how fast we're driving. I like the cars we're in. Um, I like the plan to climb the giant mountain, So, but again, nothing I think matters until we play games. And we're trying to prep ourselves for really hard things. Winning a lot is hard.
Yeah.
You have to prepare yourself for hard stuff. You got to condition yourself for hard stuff. You got to get comfortable in hard environments. So our off season's been incredibly hard, and everybody's gonna say, "Oh, that's just physical." Everybody's, yeah, of course. We lift weights, we run, we throw stuff around, we
Yeah.
do mat drills, we do all the stuff everybody else is doing. I think where we try to make it harder is the mental, emotional piece, to challenge them while they're doing hard physical things, to do hard mental things, to do hard emotional things. Challenge them to have grown man habits,
Yeah.
priorities. You start doing those things. Now the hard starts building up, and to go on a hard football journey doesn't seem quite as difficult.
Well, and like you said, I mean, building men, right?
Yeah.
Essentially, and when you look at your fiber, who you are, your morals, your values, your faith, your belief in God, the challenges you've had, the adversity you've had, when you put all of those life experiences together and the knowledge and wisdom that you've gained, not just in football, but in life, what type of leader has that turned you into? When you look at because we are the sum of our experiences. So, being the sum of your own experiences personally, what does that look like when you're standing in front of your team?
I would say clarity. And what I mean by that is, I think a lot of leaders in all different walks of life uh, are trying to be something they're not.
Yeah.
They're trying to be like somebody else. And I've fallen into that trap. I mean, one of the colossal failures of my career was early, probably the first 4 years, trying to be John Elway and Dan Marino instead of the best version of Trent Dilfer. Those were the guys I looked up to. I got to hang around them. I got to see them lead and play, and I'm like, oh, I'm going to be like them. And it took Tony Dungy to help me realize that the best leaders are authentic. They're the best versions of themselves. And you're going to have gaps.
Yeah.
You can't, I think a lot of college coaches, I'm learning, feel like they have to be everything to everybody. I think they all feel like they have to be Nick Saban to a certain degree. Um, and if that's what we're trying to be, then we're all going to fail miserably. You're talking about a unicorn.
Yeah.
And, I think where I have as a leader is clarity. I'm going to lead this program with the values and core beliefs that I believe in, that I've seen work over time, that are part of my fabric, things I'm an expert in. And then where I have gaps, I've hired people to fill those gaps. And I think there's strength in that. So I know the direction we're going. I believe every leader has to have a very clear, crystallized vision statement that their people know about and own and understand. I think you have to have a very distinct mission. That's how you get to that vision.
Yeah.
We do. Our building knows it well, and I think you have to have a set of, you can call them core beliefs, you can call them fundamentals, you can call them whatever you want to call them. To us, it's our standard, and the habits that we want to live on and off the field that will help us reach those standards.
Yeah, and like you said, having those standards that you have, and making mention of the fact of as a quarterback, I got to be this guy, I got to be that guy, instead of the best version of myself, or I got to be like Nick Saban. But there's an interesting thing, and I bring it up on the show a lot, is even identical twins are not exactly the same. They have different
Yeah,
personalities.
yeah.
So when people say, "How do you know that God exists?" I'm like, okay, look at two people that look exactly the same, but yet this one can sing and this one doesn't carry a tune as well. This one's got a great sense of humor. This one's serious. This one wants to go to school to become a doctor. This one's playing basketball. So there's something to be said about the intricacies of being uniquely you. And when I asked you about who do you look like when you stand in front of your team, you just said clarity. So when you are being uniquely you, when did you come to that point? I know you mentioned Tony Dungy, but is that the moment, the interaction with him, where Trent Dilfer realized as a football player, I just got to be Trent? And did you have one of those moments in coaching where you were like, yeah, I need to just do this the Dilfer way and not really focus on other people?
I think it's been an evolution. Yeah, Tony had a tremendous influence on me. I think I grew as a leader as my career progressed. I think the Elite 11 was really good for me.
Yeah.
Building that and coaching the elite, most of them are in the NFL right now, starting quarterbacks or Power Five, starters, Heisman Trophy candidates, whatever, being around that group and growing as a leader, growing as a communicator. I think a lot of leading is connecting. I think you have to connect with the people that you've been, I would say, blessed and burdened to lead. Um, I leadership. I get this speech all the time. Like, go ahead and Google leadership. You're gonna get like 8 million different definitions.
Yeah.
I actually like. I think it's a hybrid of Tyson and somebody else who's taking somebody where they need to go, even if they don't want to get there. So I think there's a burden to that. I think I've grown and understanding that. I think I've made a lot of mistakes along the way. I can remember vividly, being at Lipscomb and one of my best friends on the planet, Phil Dawson, is coaching for me, and his son Bo is playing for me. I love Bo like my own kid, and we have an incident on the sideline where we both get hot-headed and it goes viral, and it's I feel awful about that because as the leader, I could have diffused the situation instead of making it worse, and I learned valuable lessons from that. I think last year had an incident in Tulane where a coach, made a bad decision, cost us, a chance to win the game with a decision. And instead of handling it in a mature, nurturing way, I let my emotions get the best of me, and it became embarrassing for him and for me. And, so you try to learn from those. I've tried to grow. I'd pick a word of the year every year. Um, and I try to really focus in on that word and how to grow in that area. Um, I think that helps me as a leader. I think, owning your mistakes when you make them, I'm going to make plenty. And
Yeah.
when I do, I try to, ask for forgiveness of the person I offended or hurt. If it's not that severe, it's just a mistake in decision making, then I try to really reflect on how that decision was made. Did I make it emotionally? Did I make it tactically? Did I pray over that decision? Did I listen to bad counsel? Did I seek good counsel? So being self-reflective and trying to understand why you're making good and bad decisions or having good or bad behaviors. I think anybody that claims that they are a finished product is really living a lie. And I don't want to live a lie. So I'm in constant growth mode and trying to become better at this every day.
Yeah, and like you said, there's moments where you've made decisions and you reflect on it and say, I could have done this better and whatnot. In the world we live in today, Trent, and especially in the United States of America, because we're here, we see it all the time. The controlling of emotions, right? They always say that if you take a step back, that when you're feeling all these emotions, that you should never act on it in the moment, but essentially kind of take a breath, take a deep breath. And once you take that deep breath, it kind of like eases things. And then you can take a look at how you're going to assess something. We've all had moments where we've done that. We live in a country where people seem to just fly off the handle. They make those immediate reactions. Social media, somebody sees a video, there's no context of the video. They don't know anybody in the video, but they've made an assumption. They're condemning this person, they're doing this or doing that. So when it comes to controlling emotions and learning in those moments, like you said, those viral moments or when something happens, because you're a coach, everything that you do can be on camera, can
Mm-hmm.
be recorded. How have you, and you know that as a player too, how have you essentially grown up in a world where you're always being recorded, so to speak? And within that, to know that controlling emotions is important, but knowing that, like, if you have a moment like most people do, we all have our moments, that your moments get caught on camera.
Yeah, I think there's a two-part answer to this. I think number one, I'll address living in the spotlight. Let's call it that. Whether it's on camera or people are aware or care or people want, to wait for you to mess up so you can be more in the spotlight, whatever it may be. Um, I think I've learned the hard way. I've also avoided some of this because I have learned, um, is one, try to do the right thing.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like you try to improve as a human, so you represent yourself and the people in your flock, your family, your team, whatever it is, to the highest degree.
Yeah.
Um, when you mess up, which we all will, I think taking ownership of it's an important thing. I think you only compound things when you deny it or lie about it or dig yourself a bigger hole, justify it. Um, so I would say that I do think you have to when the camera's always on you. We've had documentary shot on us at Lipscomb last year. One will be coming out about the first year at UAB, and um, you got to be you, because otherwise your people aren't gonna feel your presence.
Yeah.
They're not gonna think you're authentic because the camera's on you. Um, and then you got to have somewhat of a trust that whatever is produced and put out there has context. Because I think that's what really gets most people in trouble is when half the conversation is out there or a sound bite or
Yeah.
a 10-second clip instead of a 2-minute piece. And I tend to story tell more than give sound bites. I learned that on TV is, you get in trouble when the producer's in your ear and he's saying, hey, you got 30 seconds and you try to put a bunch of sound bites out there. I
Yeah.
think you have to learn how to be a good storyteller. So a lot of my teaching is long version storytelling. So if any piece of that gets cut up and it's not contextual to the whole story, then people can interpret it differently than the way it was intended. But a lot of that stuff you can't control either. I think the emotional piece is something that um, I really struggle with in this sense is that I know I'm at my best, whether it's coaching, playing golf, playing cornhole, in a meeting, when I'm intense. I think I have a natural intensity to the way I approach life. I've been I've had a lot of really smart people, Michael Gervais, world's leading human performance coach, other great leaders, John Gordon, that have known me, observed me, and tell me one of my strengths is the vigor, the intensity for which I attack every moment of every day. So that's a good thing. But that's also a bad thing because when that intensity becomes anger or frustration, it surfaces in a way that has got me in trouble, makes me not the leader I want to be, and isn't as effective. It's just not. I just don't think it's as effective as teaching and instructing and understanding where something might have happened. So it's like this on off.
Yeah.
To be good at what I do, I have to have this natural intensity to handle at extremely intense adverse situations. The deep breath, that calming in my spirit has to take place. It's been my biggest point of focus for 2024, and I chose that. I usually take a couple of weeks to choose my year. I get away after the seasons and I, have solitude and really wrestle with the word of the year. This year it was like a no brainer. It was like God imprinted it on my forehead. It was prayer. I need to be more prayerful in those moments and trust that the power that lives in me can calm me and can balance both the intensity and the calmness at the same time. So, I hope that the joke around the building is I lost my mind 4 times last year. And this year the goal is 2 by the coaches. And I'm hoping to make it 0. So we'll see. But that is as honest and transparent as I can be. Is that's one of the biggest struggles that I have
Yeah.
is turning off the juice that makes me good, so that it doesn't make me bad in certain situations.
And I think it's passion, right?
Yeah.
The desire to accomplish something. And I tell people this too because there's different words that we use, but when you start, in my, like you talked about, owning businesses, I own my own multimedia marketing company, and we're right around 12 years old right now. And to me, to do something like this, I tell people you got to be a little bit crazy to the populace, not to yourself, but to build a company out of thin air that is not pre existing. And the funny thing is, Trent, and I know that you can roll with me on this because you and I both have a strong faith, is people will ask me, how did you start your business? And whether it's, you know, somebody that I'm meeting as a friend, or it's someone in passing in the media, or I'm out on a date. It could be any type of situation. But when somebody says to me, how did you start your business? And they don't believe in God, I'm like, oh, this is going to go great. Because to me, it's the same answer every time. And it's the best way I know how to describe it. I said, nothing existed. I had an idea. I left to go to the internet. I chose to leave traditional radio. I did it 12, 13 years ago where it was unheard of. Nobody knew what a podcast was. People thought it would fail. They thought the internet was never going to work with radio and TV and whatever. And my producer said, I think you should try this. And so when people say, when you chose to do this, when you chose to go off on your own, and I did it because I was lied to by my bosses and there was no morals and values at the place I was working, and I was sick and tired of like being me and then having to, like being like, well, I believe in God and I believe in morals and values, but I'm working for people that don't, or they don't show it. I built my company in the trenches, molding the air in front of my face with God. Nobody could see it except for him and I. And I literally just pictured taking it like a ball and just turning it into something. And over time, now it's tangible. But I always say that I'm like, when someone doesn't believe in God and I describe to you how I did this, you're going to think I'm nuts. And I think when it comes down to it, when you chase your dreams, Trent, you know this. I treat the world like it's a stadium. 70,000 people sitting in the stands saying, I'm a better quarterback than Trent Dilfer. I'm a better broadcaster than Dan Tortora. But there's only one person broadcasting the game, and there's only 22 people on the field. So you can either be on the field doing the unimaginable and the impossible, or you could be the majority of people saying, I could be better than that, but you're never going to leave your seat. And so I applaud those things, and I applaud the people that take the time to do it. And like you said, passion's a beautiful thing, but you have to also control it. On top of all of that, Trent, I don't think people fully understand the incredible amount of faith and work and hope and tears and moments where you just want to scream in your basement, because it's not an easy life to go after the things that you truly want, because most people settle.
Well, I think you touched on a couple things there. I think one thing I've really tried to teach my people this year is the value or the passion that comes from calling plus conviction more than ambition. So, I have it up in my office, calling plus conviction is greater than ambition. Not that ambition is bad. I'm an ambitious person, but true passion comes when you feel called to something and you have total conviction on
Yeah.
who's in charge and how you're going to approach it. Um, the second principle is something that is the core value of our program, and I have two signs up in my office. I don't have a lot of sayings up in my office. There's a lot around the building. Every building has sayings, but in my office, there's two. There's two really beautifully well done, professionally done graphics of one is I'm getting hit. I get my hand broken in the Super Bowl on a pass, and it's the face mask hitting my hand, breaking it as I'm delivering the pass. And um, it says that the edge of uncomfortable is where you find greatness. And then the other one is an Elite 11 carrying the American flag. We did these rucksack runs at Elite 11 in Oregon at Nike headquarters, and they were brutal, really testing the grit and stamina of the staff and the players. And that one says hard things equal great things.
Yeah.
So I think we got to do hard things. Anybody that's looking for comfort, I get it. I right now I'm on vacation. I'm very comfortable in the seat that I sit in, but I'm making myself uncomfortable by things I'm doing while I'm on vacation. Um, I think you got to do hard things to reach your potential. Nothing great has ever happened that's easy. And if you're taking on the challenge, if you're crazy enough to coach Group of Five football right now in today's climate, you're basically signing up for the hardest thing you've ever done. There's nothing easy about this. There's more challenges than people could possibly begin to imagine. And you got to love the battle. You got to love the battle that you're in. You got to love the mountains you got to climb. You got to love the challenges you face every day. And every morning I wake up and there's going to be 4 to 9 unforeseen events that I have to problem solve
Yeah.
or get through or carry my people through. And um, that's really hard to do. And I think you gotta love that piece of it. I giggle sometimes when people talk about the impossible, and I'm like, I'm a child of the mountain mover. Like I get the impossible. I've seen the impossible happen. So I signed up for the impossible. I was called to it. I have total conviction in it, and I'm excited about how I'm going to grow, and the people around me are going to grow through it.
And for you, I mean, you come to UAB, you've done so many different things in your career, you've had so many different pieces and chapters of what you've had the opportunity to do. You didn't have to do this. So you come into UAB over a year ago. Why UAB? Reflecting on that, praying on that, like you said, being more prayerful this year. What is it about UAB and this conviction that you have and determination to make this better? Why Alabama Birmingham?
I've had actually a lot of clarity on this recently. I can answer this question. I don't know if I could have answered it a while back. Um, I used to say I didn't have to do this. I remember at Lipscomb when I went there, and people go, "Why'd you do it?" And I'm like, "Well, I didn't have to. I chose to."
Yeah.
And I realized, no, I didn't. I was obedient. There's a difference between choosing to do something and being obedient to doing something. It was a distinct calling to leave a very comfortable American dream retirement in my mid 40s. You know, I'm in my mid 40s. I retired Austin, Texas. I play golf every day. You know, I chased my girls around, watched them play volleyball. Um, you know, life was a party. Literally every single day, life was a party.
Yeah.
And I got called out of that to something hard, you know, being a high school football coach. Um, and I used to say I chose it. And I go, no. I didn't choose the calling. I was obedient to the calling. That bared a ton of fruit in our family's life, in that community's life, in that program's life. I would argue the city's life of Nashville. And the same thing happened. You know, it was a very poignant moment with my wife sitting on our couch in Nashville. Had a couple different universities reaching out to me. Um, had started to go down the road with UAB a little bit, but very carefully tiptoeing around it because I didn't want to take anything away from what we were finishing. One of the more historic high school football seasons in the history of Tennessee, probably the most historic season in the history of Tennessee high school football. And I didn't want to take away from that. So it's kind of tiptoeing around. And I look at my wife and I'm like, you know, I don't think I'm going to do this. You know, like God's allowed us to do something pretty special here. Our family's here. Our daughters are nearby. We're going to be grandparents soon. Like, life's good, basically was my statement. And she looks at me and she goes, no, you're going to do it. Like, you need another mountain to climb. You know, you're comfortable again. And I saw what that was in 2018 when you're comfortable, 2017, 18. And I loved you 2019 through 22, 23. And it's because everything you've done is hard and you've been uncomfortable and you've practiced what you've preached and you've been on edge in a good way and you're a problem solver and you're helping kids and you're growing coaches and you're changing communities and you need to, if you stay here, it's going to become mundane again.
Yeah.
And that's the answer to UAB. I don't know if it was UAB. It was being obedient to a calling that was reinforced through my wife. And if anybody's been married as long as I have, we just celebrated 31 the other day. And, you know, you
Congrats.
learn that you start trusting and listening to how God is speaking through your wife more. And the more I listen to her, the better I am usually. And that's why it's here. And it is an incredible challenge and is every bit as difficult, if not more difficult, than what we did in Nashville. But again, when you're obedient to a calling, you also understand that you know good things are going to happen if you continue that obedience and that faithfulness.
Yeah, you know, and that there's a word I used to run from because it came from a person that I felt like used it as a weapon. But there's a word that I don't run from anymore, and that's the word discernment.
Yeah,
You know, and I just and congratulations on 31 years. This I love I just love that. I love that you were like, well, I'm not going to do this. We're good here. Things are going well. And that she was like, no, you know, like how rare is it to find a husband or a wife that doesn't allow you to not challenge yourself
hmm
and is willing to make a sacrifice with you. I think like one of the greatest blessings that God can give to anybody is to not only give you that discernment and give you that passion and that desire to chase something, but to have somebody alongside you going, if you stop pushing yourself, if you stop running down this road, I'm going to be right there and I'm going to be bumping you going like, we need to do this. And so congratulations to you as a family that you have somebody that can look you in the eye and when you say, "Yeah, we're good here," that she looks at you and goes, "No, Trent, there's more for you to do. God's not done with you yet."
Well, I wish I would have listened to her more in my career. She had some really sage advice early in my career that I ignored, resisted, and it cost me a lot. So hopefully, after 31 years, I'm learning to listen a little bit better. You know, I did the Proverbs challenge this year. Me and a couple guys on staff are doing it, where you read a proverb every single day throughout the month, and you repeat it, you repeat it, you repeat it. So we're on, I think, month seven now, and it's amazing through the Proverbs how Solomon talks about wisdom and discernment, and wisdom, the practical application of knowledge, discernment, being the ability to thoughtfully and prayerfully make decisions, not on your own all the time. And I struggle. I've always struggled in those areas. But hopefully as I grow older, I'm getting better at those, and hopefully my people benefit from that. I keep referring to my people because it's really not a team. It kind of bothers me all the time when you watch college coaches now that I'm in it and they talk about they're responsible for their team, and that is true, and that's obviously your primary concern because you're trying to win, but you have a big building too. We got 140 people in our building,
Yeah.
plus actually it's more like 158, um, and you're responsible for their futures. You're grooming some of them from your student assistants, in video, equipment, in operations, scouting. You have GAs, you have analysts, you have, so many people, department heads, and you're really responsible for nurturing them as much as your team. And I take a lot of pride in that. And I'm fully transparent when I make mistakes to all of them. I've actually gone up to a student assistant and apologized before, because I made a mistake, and they look at me crazy like the head coach doesn't have to apologize. They're all scared, and I'm like, no, I mean, human beings are human beings. I don't care what your title is.
Yeah.
And hopefully that's the culture that is being built in our building. And there's a sense of humility. I hate it when people say they're humble. As soon as they say that, they're about to get knocked down a step. So I'm not saying we're humble. We're working on humility every single day. We're trying not to become prideful. Um, but I think that's modeled by a leader that is willing to humble himself, which is humiliation. The root word of humble is humiliation. Humble himself to his people, and allow them to know that he has faults and is a work in progress, and will do better the next time, and really work on correcting the mistakes he's made.
That coming here from Trent Dilfer, UAB Blazers head football coach, heading into the 2024-25 season here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora in the Heritage Hill Studios. Before we jump to rapid fire, where you and I get to put each other on the hot seat for a second, because I know you're on vacation, I want you to enjoy it. I do have to ask you a really easy layup question, and that is NIL transfer portal and the insane realignment that we have. Obviously, I'm being facetious with this, but you and I have talked about this, and you had a roundtable last year in Arlington with a bunch of people that you were addressing about something that I'll never forget, which I think you had said along the lines of there are people that study my roster and know my roster more than I do. And so when it comes to the transfer portal and NIL and the Pac 12, I don't think it's dead. I feel like we're going to see that logo again in the not too distant future. I don't buy Cal and Stanford being in the ACC for long. I think it's a band-aid. There's a lot of predictions that I've had on this. Unfortunately, some of them have come true. I didn't predict them for them to come true. I predicted them as a cautionary tale. But there's a lot of things that you're dealing with as a head coach. And you and I talk about faith, morals, discernment, prayer, thoughtfulness, being humble, building a family, taking care of your people, not just your players. All of that stuff we've had in this conversation and beyond it's combated essentially by name, image, and likeness when it's used to get people into the portal, when it's used to destroy the family, when it's used as a very personal thing. The transfer portal, I don't like the coach didn't play me in week 3, so I'm out. There's a lot of things that are happening that as we talk about building a foundation, there's things that can also disrupt that a lot easier than in the past because these things used to be illegal and now they're very legal. So how have you evolved in the world of trying to address the me being raised above the we when you're trying to make a culture of we?
I mean, you're talking about a 5 hour answer here.
I know, I know.
I'll try to give you 3 to 5 minutes. I've said this from day one. I love that these student athletes have the opportunity to benefit from their name and image and likeness.
Yeah,
I think it's long overdue. Um, I think that the portal, the transfer rule, when it was one time, was a very good thing. Because kids make mistakes, coaches make mistakes, parents make mistakes. I'm the father of three very, very successful high level Division I volleyball players. All three of them transferred,
yeah,
all transferred into much, much better situations than the original situation they were in. Not because of playing time, just culture, fit, location, opportunity, challenges. My middle one was all Big 12 as a freshman and takes a chance to go compete for a job at Louisville and becomes two-time all first team All-American, still play professional volleyball. So um, I think that all that's good. We don't live the same dynamic that most people read about because you're mostly reading about the SEC, the Big 10, Big 12, ACC, the Power Four. At the Group of Five level, yeah, there's tons of challenges with this. Yes, we're losing players. Yes, we're getting poached. Now the NCAA isn't even really talking about tampering. So yeah, all that stuff is real. But I've also tried to use it as um, an opportunity for our kids. I think this is where I'll land. Is that we're only getting started. Okay, so
yeah,
anybody, I fight this with my admin all the time and people like, if you think this is slowing down, you are crazy. Um, once economics is introduced into a formula to this extent, there's no going backwards. So we're only going more forward. It's going to take some really, really wise, discerning, business minded people, non institutional, non academia. So business driven CEO types that have done this at a high level to restructure this as we move forward. I don't know who those people are, but they need to surface because it's chaos that we're living in right now. Some of us, and this is where I'll land, I've chosen to embrace the chaos with this simple thing in mind. Be kid centric. If you can truly wake up and be about your student athlete, be about your player, make decisions that are best for them, not be scared of things that may be bad for you but best for them, then I think you can find some peace in this. I'll give you an example. Jalen Key, my first spring ball, is our best player by far on defense. It's not even close. And we really build the entire defense around him.
yeah,
And he comes to my office after spring ball and tells me about his opportunities if he were to enter the portal. And I said, okay, Jalen, I said, I appreciate you coming to me. I said, let's investigate whether these are real or not, because a lot of stuff you hear about isn't real. We'll investigate it. It's very real. He's worth a lot of money. He was worth 2 times what I had for my entire roster at that period. And we supported it. We helped vet it for him. We walked him through it.
yeah,
We celebrated his opportunity to go to the University of Alabama. I called Nick directly and said, man, you're getting a great kid. This kid's really going to help you. I'm so excited for him. I'm excited for you. I'm excited for his future. It is best for Jalen Key to be with Nick Saban and the University of Alabama. More, as much as it hurts us, is best for him.
yeah,
This year, our best corner, very good player, will be in the pros. Had a better opportunity. We handled it the same way. We celebrated his ability to benefit from this. Does it hurt us as a team? Possibly. It could. You're losing a very talented player. We also have very talented players we've recruited behind him.
yeah,
We've also given kids these opportunities. So there's kids at lower levels or at higher levels that aren't getting opportunity. Now they have opportunity to the UABs, the USFs, the FAUs, our conference team. So it works both ways. I want the kid to win. I don't know. I'd be lying if I told you that I know this is going to work in building the we. But part of building the we is that they trust the head coach.
Yeah.
And I tell recruits all the time, don't you dare go anywhere where you don't trust the head coach. And that's me included. If I ever let you down, if I ever lie to you, if I ever tell you something that you find out isn't true, if you talk to a parent of another player or a player and it's conflicting from what I have told you in the recruiting process, then you should address that with me. And if you can't trust me at the end of that decision, you should not be a Blazer, because you're going to be miserable if you go somewhere where you don't trust the head coach, because the head coach is determining the direction and vision for the entire program. And if you buy into one thing and then you get there and it's something else, you're not going to be happy.
Yeah.
Well, a happy player is a bad player. So again, I can go all day on this, but I just settled, and my staff really has a hard time with this at times because they've been in part of different models. Um, but if you're trying to win for the kid, if you're doing what's best for the kid in your building and possibly as they leave your building, um, I think you develop a really close trust with your team. And I know it's working right now because my team trusts me with so much of their personal stuff. The joke is I have this couch in my office, and I have these two big lounge chairs as well. And half my job is spent doing parenting. I parent these boys as much as I coach them,
Yeah.
because they need it and they want me and they trust me. And I've asked their parents, hey, would you trust me to co-parent with you if that comes up? And the parents say yes. And so I feel like that's my responsibility. And I think the more they see the authenticity, the honesty, the vulnerability, the willing to get messy with them, because kids' lives are messy.
Yeah.
Um, I think it's only that's going to build the we in the midst of the me college football environment. Now, I don't deal with what Nick Saban dealt with. I don't deal with what Lane Kiffin's dealing with. I don't deal with what Ryan Day's dealing with. Kids not playing so they sit out in week 3, or opting out of bowl games, or not getting paid, holding you hostage to paychecks, and becoming unrestricted free agents every portal cycle. There may be a day when I have to address that. Um, but as of right now, ours is more, I'm going to win for the kid. I'm going to help the kid continue to win. I'm make sure they trust that they know that I'm in it for them. You do that enough, and I do believe we can build a we in a very I-centric culture right now.
Well, I what I love about what you said is you essentially said, I took the I took the I and a kid saying, "Hey, I could go into the portal and do all this," and I turned it back to the we, because here's a person who wants to potentially leave my team and go somewhere else and make more money in NIL and this and that. But if I show my entire team that what I said when I talk to each of them is that I want to help you grow and I want you to have the best opportunity possible, they're seeing me do that with this kid, that where it doesn't benefit me, it only benefits him, but I'm here for his future. That in the I world, you flipped the script and you put it back to the we and said, I am the coach I said I was, and I'm going to help you no matter what. And I think that sounds so simply said, but I commend you for that, because essentially you're saying, I'm going to take the hit in order to live by my word, and I'm going to try and set you up for your future in the hope that the rest of my team and you are going to be in your best situation possible. And how many people are willing to do that? How many people are willing to take an initial hit to live by their word? Because a lot of people live by their word and say, I'll do anything for you as long as it benefits them. But the moment it doesn't benefit you to do the best for somebody else, that's where character comes out. So I commend you
Well,
for that.
I think that there's a realistic economic piece of this too. Um, you got to be able to take care. You got to retain your players. You got to take care of them. You do have to be competitive in the portal.
Yeah.
And these are all realistic things. You can be kumbaya all you want, and you're not gonna be able to get enough good players in modern day football
Yeah.
without handling the economics well. So I think one of the things we've learned as we've taken this approach is a lot of these kids don't their motivation, the right ones, their motivation is not to break the bank. The motivation is to be valued for what they are. And what we believe in is the value to each player is both economic and sweat equity.
Yeah.
Like, and the players that we feel are going to win for us are players that understand that their value is partially economic, and we try to meet that to a certain degree. And then we want to fill maybe where there's a little less there. We want to fill that with sweat equity. We want to fill that with relentless engagement, connection, um, doing life with them. And we've been able to retain a lot of really good players for less than they may have been offered elsewhere. Our quarterback's the best example. So
Yeah.
our quarterback on the open market was worth anywhere from $400,000 to $600,000 for one semester. And, or actually, it would be 2 semesters, spring and fall. But he was a graduate student. Very good player, has a bright future. And again, we were honest with him. I'm the one that encouraged him to explore the portal. I said I would never hold you back from making that type of life-changing money.
Yeah.
Me, his parents, Alex Mortensen, our offense coordinator, had very honest conversations with him as he was talking to the different collectives. And I simply said, hey, I believe our collective, you can talk to them, but, this is what we have. I understand what we have. But what we can do is be what we've been this year and not change and pour everything we have into you. And to him, that he felt for a fraction of what he was being offered elsewhere, he felt enough value in that personal connection and that sweat equity to fill the gap. And also betting on himself. He's betting on himself that with the mentoring of myself and Alex Mortensen and Nick Coleman and Danny Mitchell, we have 7 quarterback guys on our roster. On our coaching staff.
Yeah.
And it's basically a quarterback think tank. And he's really trusting that with that development, that he's got a chance to make life-changing money in professional football. So I don't know. I'm not Nostradamus. I can't predict that stuff. The same way when I was at the Elite 11, I would be like, hey, yeah, he's got a really good chance to be a pro one day, but I don't know. But I think that's happened at a lot of other levels too. Players that chose not to enter the portal because they felt valued here. Some of their economic needs were met, but a lot of their emotional needs were met too. So a lot of people disagree with me, and I'm totally cool with that. And I can see if you are just super cutthroat, and this comes down to who has the most money. I know that they're dealing with this. Like right now, there's a high school player out there I read about that is committed to one of these, premier programs, and now 2 other premier programs are jumping in by offering more money, and that's real. That stuff happens, and maybe you have to handle those a little bit different. My argument to that would be getting them is one thing.
Yeah.
Keeping them and getting the best out of them. They always used to say it's talent acquisition and talent development. That was a big Parcells thing. I think it's talent acquisition that fits both him and you, and then it's the nurturing of that talent on and off the field to get the best out of him, which will then get the best out of you. And I think we try to dumb down some of these formulas too much when they're more calculus than they are algebra. And when you're dealing with young people, economics, the stage of life they're in, the degree that they're trying to get, sometimes they're way more what's the word, worldly and ambitious than people give them credit for. They think they I think the world thinks every college football player is going to play college football because they think they're going to the NFL. I think they have more depth than that. I think many of them actually see themselves as architects and venture capitalists and principals and lawyers and, entrepreneurs, and they're going to use football as a means to reach an ultimate dream, which is has more depth than just playing football. And when you get to know a young person and you start nurturing them in a way that's going to allow them to be the best football player, but also allow them, give them the skill set, the habits, the disciplines to one day be what he, in his mind's eye, sees himself going to be. And I'm
Yeah.
saying, masculine terms here because we're doing football players, but it's the same with my daughters and girls volleyball, and you can put a her next to a him. Um, that these young people have more depth, and you have to take every situation uniquely. I don't think there's any cookie cutter way of dealing with the chaos that we all are dealing with right now in college football.
Yeah. And I appreciate, like I said, I appreciate the look inside of this, and I appreciate the storytelling of it, because there's a stamp you're putting on it, right? You're and how you're going about it. Really, what you're talking about, what we've talked about this entire broadcast, is relationships. The one
Yes.
thing that survives when people say, well, why did you think it would work on the internet? Or why do you think you can do this? Or you go away from a big name company. How do you think you're going to survive? And I was like, it's relationships. Well, what about businesses? It's relationships. Well, why do people come on your show? It's relationships. Because relationships now more than ever, which is insane to me, Trent, but when people are like, you're an honest person in the media, and I was like, yeah, I thought that was a prerequisite. But to people now, when you say honest media, they're like, what is there, four of you? So there's things that, to me, I just grew up on, like, you have to care about the person more than the story. And when you care about the story, you're hoping to utilize someone in a transactional relationship one time or a few times in hopes that it'll catapult you. When you're not transactional and you're relationship driven, you are going to enrich your life far beyond money, prosperity, and whatever people consider to be power. Because to me, your currency at the end of your life is your soul. And when God takes that out of you and downloads that and takes a look at it, that has nothing to do with money. It has nothing to do with how many cars, how many houses you have. It has nothing to do with how many people follow you on social media. When you look at the relationships you've built and the things that you've done with your word or haven't done with your word, to me, relationships survive in the crazy world that we live in, because no matter what people say and do, everyone wants to have someone in their corner that they can trust when everything hits the fan. And if you live in relationships being the key, then you will always find a place in a world that's chaotic, at least in
Yeah,
my opinion.
I'll give every football fan a math equation here.
Yeah.
Um, it's pretty simple. Winning without relationships, in-depth relationships, deep, meaningful relationships, equals achievement and emptiness. Losing without deep relationships equals despair and emptiness. But there's a third piece that very few get. Winning plus deep relationships. Actually, let me reverse that. Deep relationships equals winning, which also equals winning plus fulfillment. And that's what I'm trying to do. Like, people ask me all the time, what's your philosophy? I'm like, win off the field first, and that will carry over on the field.
Yeah.
Really, what I'm saying, without being too kumbaya, is have deep, meaningful connections and relationships and authenticity with the people that you're climbing the mountain with. By doing that, you will win. You just will, because you'll get the best out of each human. Like, we're going to be our best on the field. We're going to be our best in game planning. We're going to be our best in recruiting. We're going to be our best in managing budgets. We're going to be our best in, fan engagement. We're going to be our best in marketing when we are being our best selves, and others are helping us be our best selves. When we do that, we're going to win. But then when we win, we get the third formula that very few get, and that's winning plus fulfillment. I've climbed the mountain, climbed a higher mountain than there is anything in college football. Like, I giggle sometimes when people say, "Oh my gosh, a national championship is the greatest thing." I'm like, nah. There's this thing called a Super Bowl. That is the ultimate pinnacle in football. There's nothing greater.
Yeah.
And I was lucky enough to be part of the team that climbed that mountain. And luckily, that team had winning plus fulfillment because many of us made sure that while we climbed Everest that year, that relationships were the priority.
Yeah.
And because of that, many of us played beyond our ability. I challenge people all the time, name 5 starters from the greatest defense of all time.
Yeah.
Very few. One guy, a bartender at Joe Marco's in Birmingham, who's a lifelong Ravens fan, was the only person that could name 5. And I've asked this question 50 times around the country. Most will say Ray, obviously. Some will get Saragusa. Some will get Rod Woodson. But then you're going to run out, and what you're going to get is they're going to say, well, how'd you guys do it then? And I'm going to say, because there's a bunch of really good players that played their best
Yeah.
that year.
Yeah.
Right? There were a bunch of really good players
Yeah.
that played their best, came together, and we climbed the ultimate mountain. And when we were celebrating post game, it's not the Walter Payton story where he felt despair. It's not the countless stories of people winning Super Bowls and they feel empty. Our tanks were full because we had achievement and we had fulfillment. And my dream is to do that for a college football program and hopefully kind of reset the model, um, where people feel like they can win relationships and also win the ultimate crown of their conference championship, if that's as high as you can get, or possibly one day a national championship.
Yeah, coming from Trent Dilfer here on Wake Up Call inside the Heritage Hill Studios. Trent, our final piece, rapid fire. We get to put each other on the hot seat. You have answered so many questions over time, and as a player and as a coach, you never get to ask them, but I will defer to you and you get to ask the first question.
The first question: what's the best interview you've ever done?
Oh, boy. What is the best interview I've ever done? Honestly, I always go to this guy, and he's right off to my right here with his book Promises to Keep and the hat that he signed of the Denver Broncos, and he's in heaven now. One of my close friends. I can't. Every time I think about him, I'm like, this guy was like meeting a ghost. I couldn't believe that I could shake his hand. I couldn't believe that I'd hug this guy, that he was happy to see me, that we'd talk for an hour on the phone. Everything about it to me was surreal, and I miss him terribly. Is Floyd Little, and he's just a good man. When I decided to start my own company at 26, and now I'm 38, when I decided to start my company, I went to my mom's mom, my G Mama. So I went to G Mama, I went to my mom, I went to my dad, and I went to Floyd.
I've
That
never
was
heard a bad thing about him.
no, and there's nothing bad to say. And I mean, I still walk into a Syracuse press conference for a football game and just wait to see him and have his back to me. Because at like 80 years old, I mean, this guy in his 70s looked like he could play football today. And I remember, I do to this day, I think about walking in there and just seeing him standing in front of me and him turn around and there's all these people in the room, all these, hands to shake and babies to kiss. And he would look right at me and he would go, "Dan, there he is." And he'd give me a huge hug. And it's people like that that just make you feel seen. And he had this, again, relationships. When he cared about you, you knew it. It was consistent. You mattered. And there was just a deep feeling of belonging when you were with him. So I'm going to say Floyd. And honestly, and I don't say things unless I mean them, I could not wait to have this conversation today because I just feel a deep gratitude and connection to the type of person you are and the type of person I am. And I feel like there's so much to use something you said. I think there's a lot in the tank here. And I think that over time we're going to fill each other's tank. So to me, I couldn't wait to have this conversation because I feel like it's somebody else who genuinely cares about the things that matter. And time flies by when I get the opportunity to talk with you, but it's yeah, I value this because you're just somebody who I really appreciate hearing from and what's on your mind. And you know, you're the person that when I'm down in Arlington, Texas, I'm saying like, okay, how do I, you know, I know he's going to have a million people wanting to talk to him, but can I get like a lunch with Trent where we can just talk about whatever? And so, I mean, I'd have to put you on that list too, because there's a piece of my heart that goes into this where I feel like you're just different, and I appreciate that.
I appreciate that.
So I'm going to send back to you, Trent. I love talking about food. So I want
Yeah,
to
we're
know,
foodies. We're foodies.
so I want to know, what is the one food that you cannot live without? And then secondly to that, what is the one thing, like the one snack that people have that if you were on a bus with your team, you would be like, you would literally open the window and throw it out the window. Like, what's the thing you can't live without? And then what's that one food where you're like, how can somebody like this?
Dried mangoes, what I can't live without. I
Okay.
literally think I have an addiction to it. Um,
Okay.
Me and my grandson, he runs around singing Doppy, which is my grandpa name, Doppy.
Yeah.
Yeah, mango, Doppy, mango. Um, so I love dried mango, addicted to it. The one um, you know what? It's probably those little fruit cups.
Okay.
Those fake fruit cups. Like, I don't know when they got in vogue. Somewhere towards the end of my career, like everybody started giving us like these fake fruit cups for sugar energy, and all they are is sugar, syrup, and fake fruit, and they don't even taste good.
Yeah.
And they go around our buses on these travel trips, and I don't want them anywhere near me.
Okay. I can. Mine are salt and vinegar chips and black licorice, but I can understand where you're coming from.
Okay, my wife hates black licorice. I like it, but she hates it.
You like it? Okay. So
Yeah.
what's your second one for me, Trent?
My second question to you
Yes, sir.
is, and I do need to speed this up. I'm holding off my
Oh yeah, I'm
coordinators. I'm
sorry. I don't
on
want to
a
hold you up here.
coordinator meeting, but it's all right.
Yeah.
I enjoy this. My second one for you would be, who's a sneaky team that can win a national championship this year that nobody's talking about?
Oh man, I hope
Is
some.
there one?
Yeah, I think there is. I think that's tough. I I think that can win a national championship. I would say, a guy that was in the American for such a long time that I really appreciate and respect, and I've known him for almost a decade now. And I literally told Florida State fans when he became the coach, I said, y'all need to be quiet, y'all need to give him some time, and you need to let him do his thing because he's going to do his thing. So I'd probably say low key, I like Mike Norvell. They got totally disrespected and screwed out of that. That is a story that I have told on the show. Total disrespect and a horrible precedent to set. But I would say I got some good feels about Florida State. I would also like to see in the expanded playoff that the American gets a spot in it. And I'd like to see a representative from the American make some hay. And I do want to remind people that UAB's history has been pretty insane to cancel the football program and then come back and make a bowl game with teams that hadn't done anything in like over a decade. So I'm going to low key say Mike Norvell of Florida State. And I'm going to hope for a dark horse in the American to piss somebody off like the Americans done before. So
Bill Clark was an incredible coach. It's been nice. It's been really cool to get to know him, and trying to honor the program that he built out of the dust. So I could see why UAB definitely gave some people some headaches. We hope to return to that type of nuisance to some of the Power Four schools.
oh yeah. My final question for you, because I know you got to get to your meeting. My last question for you is about the American. Mike Oresco, your thoughts on him, as he was the person that helped to guide this ship with his team for the American Athletic, and just your thoughts on Tim Pernetti as he steps forward. So a changing of the guard, but what your thoughts have been of the leadership of the American.
So it's been nothing but positive. I rolled in late. I didn't get to know Mike that well. Got to go to conference meetings with him, media day, interacted with him twice during the season last year. What a good man. What a visionary. What a fighter too. Just the fight that he had to put the American where it's at. You don't really appreciate it when you're not in college. We weren't aware of the dynamics that were going on in conference realignment. And Mike was an incredible leader. And then Tim, I've actually got to know a little bit early on. And I think he's the perfect. I always say this: anytime you take over something,
Yeah.
to be successful, you kind of got to have some of the opposite of what the guy ahead of you had. Right, so I use this. Everybody in Alabama, right? University of Alabama is the biggest thing in the state, as they should be. Listen, I'm the head football coach at UAB, and I'm Roll Tide. It's hard not to appreciate how awesome Alabama football is, and how awesome Nick Saban is, and was, and is. And everybody's asked me, because I've known Kalen for a long time and was, instrumental in helping him get the Fresno job, my alma mater, and developed a nice relationship with Kalen, and good man. And they're like, what do you think of the hire? And I'm like, well, even putting my bias as a friend behind me, I think it's perfect, because there's only one person that can follow Nick Saban, and that's somebody kind of the opposite of him. Equally brilliant, equally tactical, great recruiter, all these great, but totally different personality. Yeah. And I think that's going to go really well. To follow a legend, it's very hard. Well, to follow Mike Oresco, you kind of have to be different, and Tim is all about innovation, finding a new way, being a disruptor in the space, a risk taker. There's a lot of. It's a very interesting study for anybody. Go study highly successful people. You can watch TED Talks, get on YouTube, Google them. Most of them are very big risk takers. Very few highly successful people in industry are play it safe.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Tim's a risk taker, and I think our conference needs that. Like I said, we're just getting started, ladies and gentlemen. Like, what you're seeing now is just the beginning. Literally the tip of the iceberg of where college football is going. And you better have a risk taker and a gnarly person leading your conference. Otherwise, you're going to be relegated to Division II college sports with the massive economics that are getting ready to unfold.
Love the words. Trent Dilfer coming here to us. Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. UAB preview going into the 2024-25 season. An overall look at the American inside the Heritage Hill Studios. Trent, as always, I appreciate you. I thank you for your time. And you and I will be seeing each other soon.
Dan, you're awesome. Thanks, brother.
Thank you, sir.
See ya.